I'm gonna go ahead and start recording here so that everybody can have access to this later. Awesome. All right, so I'm gonna kind of share with you my screen. I think I'm going to do that so you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. I also think it's best when you guys have something else to look at too, rather than just looking at my face. So can you guys see this? Okay, I didn't make it all pretty today because I was doing a lot of research. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it this way, and then I'll have somebody make this into a pretty presentation. So what I'm gonna be talking about is sugar-free foods, artificially sweetened foods or drinks, or maybe even just diet drinks. You've seen Diet Pepsi, Diet Mountain Dew. I think there's maybe a diet form and several different sodas I've seen out there. My goodness, I feel like there's even Diet Sunkist. Like just almost every single regular pop or soda has a diet version. So artificial sweeteners were introduced as a way to still have sweets without as many grams of sugar, which was suitable for diabetics who were trying to, number one, possibly reduce calorie intake, and two, balance their blood sugar without having to take in as much sugar that their bodies have become resistant to. So we all want to have optimal insulin sensitivity, which means when we're having sugar, our body knows what to do with it. It takes it and it starts to metabolize it. These people who are diabetics, whether that's type 1 or type 2, they're insulin resistant, so they're not able to utilize sugar in the same way that we are if we're healthy. And that could be due to, if it's type 2, it is something that has accumulated through a chronic phase of their life where now they're insulin resistant. Maybe that's from having very high sugar intake of foods. Or type 1 is they're just naturally born that way. So it's just a genetic trait that they have where they don't process sugars. So compare your standard maple syrup, which is here on the left, to your sugar-free syrup. If you compare the labels together, you're going to see a whopping difference. Maple syrup, pure as it is, in the same serving size as sugar-free syrup, is 220 calories versus 20 calories in sugar-free syrup. So if you are somebody that is looking to cut calories, in a sense, you could have like a fraction of the calories with your sugar-free syrup rather than having pure maple syrup. And my next point is I want to look at the ingredient list here. Pure maple syrup ingredient list is just organic maple syrup, or you might just see maple syrup. Rather than sugar-free syrup, we have water, sorbitol, contains 2% or less of cellulose, gum, natural and artificial flavors, caramel, color, salt, phosphoric acid, aspartame, preservatives such as sorbic acid, sodium benzoate, caramel color, sodium, blah, 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 citric acid, blah, 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 blah. So a lot of ingredients compared to maple syrup. Also, have you noticed that they are only able to list total fats, sodium, total carbs, and protein? And where you have the carbs, you can see that these were primarily from sugar alcohols rather than pure sugars, which over here you see the difference is this is just pure sugar, no sugar alcohols, nothing like that. But you also get an added benefit of potassium here. So it's another nutrient that we can get with just having pure sugar. So is there a benefit to calories per sugar compared to calories from sugar alcohol? And then a lot of the research out there, and I'll talk into this later, is based off of only short-term studies. So there's not a lot of long-term studies out there to compare, if you're going to be somebody that's choosing low-calorie, sugar-free foods versus the normal sugar, what are the benefits of that? So going into natural sugars, so these are sucrose, glucose, maltose, lactose, trehalose, I have never heard of that one, and fructose, and they both originate from natural sources such as your fruits, that's honey, that's milk, that's dairy products, and mushrooms. And I added a little apostrophe there on mushrooms because I never thought of that until I was going into this research, and I was like, why would these be from mushrooms? So I had no idea that we could get sugars from mushrooms. But essentially, the key to finding out if something is a natural sugar or not is it will end in an OSE. So OSE kind of tells you that is a natural sugar. And I think on this list here, it's just a little table that's comparing main calorie sweeteners to low calorie sweeteners. And then this one is the non-calorie sweeteners. So there's normal sugars, there's low-calorie sugars, and then there's 0 non-calorie sweeteners. And these are the ones that are approved by the European Food Safety Authority. So not the US, but I still thought it was relevant to know that other countries have approved of these different ones. So artificial sweeteners. So these are your polyols, such as sorbitol, xylitol, maltitol, mannitol, erythritol, isomalt, and lactitol. So the key to knowing if something is a sugar alcohol, it will end in an OL. These are naturally found in fruits, vegetables, and mushrooms. They are considered the low-calorie sweeteners, and they're mainly used in those sugar-free products. So you'll likely see these on your sugar-free foods rather than your zero-calorie foods. So the next section would be the zero-calorie sweeteners, and these are basically created by chemical creation. This is excluding stevia, that has little to no nutritive content. So examples of these types of sugars are saccharin, aspartame, ACE-K, I'm just going to abbreviate ACE-K, and sucralose. So remember that there's sucralose and there's sucrose. Sucrose is natural. Sucralose is sort of the zero-calorie sweetener. So again, these contain like little to no calories, and they're highly sweet in taste with less amount. So that is kind of the benefit too of having these sugars, is they're so sweet. They're so much sweeter, like 200 to 500 times sweeter than your normal table sugar or your natural sugars that we have. So kind of moving forward with how these sugars came about, these free and added sugars increased drastically in the westernized world. We had a high intake of sugar-related obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, tooth decay, so neuro diseases, so affecting the brain, and chronic inflammation. So, what do? Is we want to combat and help those that are having obesity and type 2 diabetes, is we want to still give them sugar. So we're going to kind of introduce these concepts of low-calorie sweeteners and zero-calorie sweeteners to help them so they could still have some sugar since they're less insulin sensitive. So in 2015, the WHO, which is the World Health Organization, they recommended an intake of free sugars, so that's like the sugar-free foods, below 10% of your total daily energy intake. But other countries had recommended that it was 5% would be strongly suggested rather than 10% to come from that. So for a healthy adult, 5% of total energy intake is equivalent to about 25 grams of sugar a day. Interestingly, other countries noticed increasing obesity rates as well. So further on, in 2011, Denmark added a tax on saturated fats. Hungary, in that same year, also added a levy on foods with high fat, sugar, salt, and caffeine content. Soft drinks and alcohol are all taxed. In 2012, so a year later, France placed a tax on all their sweetened beverages. And in the US, I think, proposed a tax on sugar sweetened beverages, and it's been approved since 2014, but I don't think that's necessarily in place. But I do know California approved this tax, and they saw a 21% reduction of sweetened beverage reduction and a positive impact on healthcare savings. So California reported. So since 2016, the UK actually called a sugar tax the soft drink industry levy to reduce childhood obesity. So they kind of took it a step further to not only target adult obesity rates, but they were seeing it happen in children too, which is just outrageous. So talking about sugar-free foods and your gut. So I kind of talked about this in some office hours, I think a couple months prior when I was debunking fitness myths. And I basically kind of talked about how, if you're feeling bloated and you're feeling hungrier, it could be due to artificial sweeteners. They can make our taste for sweets so high that we start to eat less of those healthy, nutritious foods like veggies because they're not sweet. So we have more of an increased hunger and craving more food as well. And we're not even opting to eat veggies and things like that because we're constantly chasing that, not sugar high, but that also dopamine effect from having sugar. We can get a good sensation from it. We're like, that's good, that's good. Think about when you're at a birthday party with somebody, and let's say somebody in your family made a cake and they're like, here, everybody try it, everybody try it. And people are eating the cake and like, oh my gosh, that's so good. Like everybody's remarks are just this like good, awesome sensation of feeling. And they're making the sounds correlated to it. All that stuff is kind of getting engraved in our minds of like, sugar is so good. How many people talk like that when they're eating vegetables? Like, not many people are sounding like that. They're like, oh my gosh, these are just so good. Not a lot of people. So could we change the way we think about foods and maybe trick ourselves into doing that? That's kind of my question too. Like, I think about these things, if we can trick ourselves into having the same response. But anyways, so there were participants in a San Antonio heart study who drank more than 21 diet drinks per week. They were twice as likely to become overweight or obese as people who didn't drink diet sodas. And I dropped in references on most of this stuff here too. So with sugar-free foods, imagine it's like our taste receptors are bombarded with this sweetness. Because remember, it's about 200 to 500 times sweeter than natural sugar. So we're bombarded with this sweetness, and we're not getting that expected surge in calories. So our body is perceiving this as natural sugar, and we're waiting for all those excess calories to come in with it, because that's usually how our body perceives sugar. It thinks it's going to get these 220 calories like maple syrup, and it's getting these 20 calories from the sugar-free syrup. So your body's a little bit confused. It's thinking that it's going to be getting these calorie-rich foods, and then it's not. So what is your body possibly might ask you to do? It's going to ask you to eat more. So in that setting, are you really reducing calories for weight loss? Or are you eating the same given the hungry response, or potentially eating more than you would have originally? And all these things need to be researched too. So at the end of the day, not a lot of this has been researched in comparison to healthy people and in regards to long-term studies. But sugar-free foods don't affect everyone the same. Some people will likely tolerate sugar-free foods better and not be as bloated as other people. Me in particular, I can't do Quest bars. They have too much sugar alcohol. I literally will taste it on the tip of my tongue, how much there is in it. So I don't tolerate that one well at all. If I'm thinking of just like artificial sweeteners off the tip of my tongue, ironically, yeah, I'm thinking of Quest bars. So what are their impact on, having a healthy body? So some studies suggested that it's actually counterintuitive sugar-free consumption to causing metabolic syndrome. So here we were introducing these foods in order to help us have healthier bodies, be able to respond to sugar better, but they saw an opposite effect, that it caused weight gain, it caused cardiovascular disease, and type 2 diabetes mellitus. So just some little back notes is metabolic syndrome is a cluster of conditions that occur together. It's an increasing risk of heart disease, stroke, and type 2 diabetes. And the conditions that come with this are increased blood pressure, high blood sugar, excess body fat around the waist, abnormal cholesterol levels, and triglyceride levels. So that's metabolic syndrome, and that's kind of what they saw correlate with this. So several physiological mechanisms have been suggested for this. So possibly the stimulation of sugar absorption in your intestines, disruption of the ability for sweet taste to signal caloric consequences. So if our body's getting stimulated by this and it's not getting that food, it's still going to try to occur some energy adaptation, whatever. Increase our appetite, impaired glycemic or insulin responses. But other studies have shown that sugar-free foods are effective in weight management. But most of these comparisons were made between individuals consuming sugar-free foods to those consuming caloric sweeteners, with only a few of those directly comparing consumption of sugar-free foods to avoidance of calorie and non-caloric sweetened products 100%. So they didn't really study who was taking in sugar-free foods to who wasn't taking in any at all, not even low-calorie sweeteners, nothing like that. They only compared sugar-free foods to consuming other caloric sweeteners as well. So is that the best base of research to support that it is good for you? I would say not. So in 2012, The FDA considers artificial sugars safe. The FDA approves this process, and it undergoes a determination of probable intake, the effect of all uses of it, and toxicology studies in animals. We are not animals. So if any of these studies bother you, they have been tested a lot on mice and animals, and no long-term studies. And the fact that the FDA has considered a lot of these safe is also still concerning too, because I don't 100% feel like our government has our back and our government doesn't have our health in its best interest. So just because something is FDA approved, I'm going to say, I'm still going to put up a little caution flag to it. But anyways, they did approve 7 sugar-free sweeteners for the use in the United States, and that is these ones right here: sulfine K, whatever, aspartame, oh yeah, that's this monk fruit, luhanguo fruit, that's monk fruit extract, saccharin, stevia, and sucralose. But I did some more research on stevia and found that pure or raw stevia is not considered safe in the United States, but the processed form of it is. So I thought that was interesting. And my questions regarding a lot of these studies is, why are these only tested on animals? You know, not to say I'm all for human trials, but there's got to be some sort of research where it's actually done on humans, and where is meta-analysis of data. So where it's taking in all the research out there and comparing all the research together. That is where you're going to find the most accurate research available. So in all this, how do we choose our foods? Is it really easy to just eat whole foods and clean foods? It's really not that easy to cut back on processed foods. And a lot of this goes into processed foods. A lot of the foods that we're eating have these artificial sugars in them. And they make up so much of what is sold on the market, but there are some things that we can do. For starters, if you are somebody that is constantly taking in diet sodas, you can make a switch for that with carbonated water. And if you're using energy drinks, you can make a switch to that with espressos or just natural coffee. You can reduce the amount of processed stuff you eat by cooking at home. When eating out, stick to places that serve mostly unprocessed foods. So think like sushi and farm-to-table restaurants. And you could ditch some of those calorie-friendly bars and products and start focusing on quality meats, veggies, fruits, and grains. And the hardest thing would be to just eliminate artificial sweeteners 100%. That's just going to be the hardest thing to do because it's in so many things. So ditching it might be very hard, but I would think more of limiting it. So a good trick, you know, if you are somebody that likes sodas, these Zevias that I've been drinking, they are 0-calorie soda, caffeine free, but that could also still give you that stimulation that you're drinking a diet soda. And they do come in flavors that replicate most of the sodas out there. So that is a good switch to make, to like try to bump off if that is what you're wanting to go on that route. But maybe just limit it per week. So maybe you're somebody that's having Diet Cokes every day. Maybe we pull back on that just a little bit. Or if you're up for it, try cutting it out completely. Maybe you're not even a soda person at all, or an energy person, energy drink person, whatever. It might be easy to kind of cut it out completely. So I'm going to dive in more to like the research. So if this isn't interesting to you, whatever, but it's mostly research out there. So 2015, they demonstrated that sugar-free consumption could induce glucose intolerance in mice and distinct human subsets by altering the gut microbiome. The full extent to which it may affect the human microbiome and consequently human health, it merits further studies in the form of prospective blinded clinical trials. Point blank, more studies needed. Long-term effects of sugar-free consumption on human metabolic homeostasis merits further research as well. So in 2015, we're still saying there might be potential some links there for it being harmful, but we need more research. 2017, sweeteners and sweetness enhancers are perceived through the blah blah taste receptors present in both mouth and numerous outside of mouth tissues. So that outside of tissue responses could also be the moment that you see food. So have you ever been at a restaurant and you're hungry and you're seeing these waiters walk by and you're like, is that food mine? Is that food mine? And you're getting hungrier and hungrier. Well, you're kind of already starting that digestive process by just looking for food, looking at food, and expecting that food to come. That already starts that brain process of, all right, food's about to enter. Your mouth might start to water. So if you've ever got that before, you're like, oh man, my mouth's starting to water. That's saliva starting to build up so it can get ready for the process of eating, where your saliva helps break down that food. So the accumulated knowledge on sugar substitutes raises the issue of potential health effects. So they're saying that we have these receptors for sweeteners, low calorie sweeteners, but the effects on our human health needs to be a little bit more studied too, because there could be some potential health effects. In 2019, here we are still, what? I don't know, never mind. So we are still incapable of reaching a definite judgment on what types of sugar-free, if any, impact glycemic control. So in 2019, we're still no definite answer. There is a need for more research to overcome limitations of recent randomly controlled trials, sample sizes, intervention duration, doses, what form of sugar-free sweeteners were used, and maybe comparing males or females, or male versus female only. So future studies should also compare different types with each other and their increasing popular natural sugar-free sweeteners. So still no solid black or white yes or no. 2020, here we are. Most recently, the impact of different sweeteners on our central nervous system, gut hormones, and gut microbiota are important, given the strong implications that changes in such systems may have for human health. So stevia offers several advantages over other non-caloric sucrose substitutes. So it's basically saying stevia is more like perceived better than some of those 0-calorie sweeteners. It has antiviral effects, immune activity, and anti-inflammatory properties, lowering your blood pressure, and that is cystic and diastolic blood pressure. But again, that was only in rats. So as I was reading through this, I was also thinking about monk fruit. So what about monk fruit? So that is actually, I went into like actual copy and pasted what it was, but it's from southern China, and it has also been used to sweeten foods and beverages. It's created by removing the seeds and skin of the fruit, crushing the fruit, and then collecting the juice. Monk fruit sweeteners are permitted for use in foods and beverages by the US FDA, so the Food and Drug Administration. And I thought this was interesting. When they reach the colon, so passing the gut, well, I guess passing the stomach, gut microbes cleave off the glucose molecules and use them as an energy source. Some metabolites are then primarily excreted from the GI tract, while minor amounts are absorbed into the bloodstream and excreted in the urine. So I kind of thought that was interesting that it just kind of doesn't even get absorbed in our stomach. It goes all the way down to the large intestine. It bypasses the small intestine too, and just goes right to the large intestine, and then there it's absorbed. So interesting, because it went through stomach, small intestine, which is where we primarily absorb all of our nutrients for food, and it made it way to the colon. But anyways, so in the same article in 2020, it said that stevia can exert anti-proliferative properties in several cancer cells. So that's anti-proliferative, means it helps it not spread even further. So this was found in pancreatic, breast, and gastric cancers. In 2013, so going back a little bit, European Food Safety Authority was reevaluating the safety of aspartame on human health. They found that it was safe in a dose of 40 milligrams per body weight a day. However, aspartame safety on human health is still under debate. So I don't know if you remember back years ago, there was this debate on those sweet and lows, like those packets that you had if you were at, let's say, Orr-Evans. They were saying that a lot of those sugars were linked to cancer and bouncing back and forth. So they basically said that no, they aren't linked to cancer. The sweet and low isn't linked, so you're good to consume it. But here in 2013, we have European Food and Safety Authority. They're still evaluating on if it's truly safe for human health or not, and that it was still under debate. So sucralose is stable during baking, and this is the one that I talked about that was one of the artificial sweeteners. Remember, it is sucralose, not sucrose. Sucrose was natural. But they said that this one was stable during baking, and it is considered safe in beverages and food that require cooking. Consumption does not affect glycemic control or insulin sensitivity in healthy individuals when administered alone. But when it's used in combination with carbs, it showed a negative impact on glucose metabolism. So, I mean, how many times are you going to be using that in cooking with carbs in it? Probably a lot. More research is needed to fully assess the effects on pregnancy. So if you're a pregnant mama, its impact on the baby. Current evidence does not suggest any adverse effects in pregnancy. It is also recommended that sweeteners are consumed in moderate amounts, adhering to acceptable daily intake standards. So basically, if you're pregnant, there hasn't been enough research to say that it affects or not. Nothing's been proven. So might as well just have it in moderate amounts rather than a lot. With regard to the effects on the gut, most of the sweeteners affect the bacterial gut composition, potentially including dysbiosis. Yeah. Among sweeteners, polyols seem to show a good safety profile. Remember, those are the sugar alcohols. The potential favorable effects of polyols on glucose homeostasis may suggest their use as a valid option in subjects of people with type 2 diabetes, that metabolic syndrome that I talked about, but further research, again, is needed in that area. Nevertheless, there is scarce evidence to establish conclusively whether the consumption of different types of sweeteners can result in significant beneficial or detrimental effects on energy balance, appetite, body weight, cardiometabolic risk factors, in all these patients with metabolic diseases. So this also still isn't comparing. What about healthy individuals? What about you and I? This is still just kind of looking at the not so healthy people we're trying to help. So overall, you might be fine in moderation. I think this is the last thing that you guys want to hear, as we want more of a definitive black or white response. Just as, you know, with most of your health journeys, you're like, well, I want to know, what exactly do I do? What exactly is it this day? What exactly is it that day? But there are other options that you can do if you are wanting to limit it and switch to more natural route. You can do agave syrup, there's honey, pure maple syrup, there's date paste. I was going to think of a few more, but I couldn't. So those are some options too. Oh no, where'd it go? Give me 1 second. Awesome. Okay. But the best route would be to limit it, treat your gut as nicely as possible with other implementations of foods. Maybe that's fermented foods that we talk about that help the gut. If you don't have an overgrowth of bacteria, maybe it's probiotics, that's sauerkraut, that is kimchi, things like that, kombucha. Lifestyle factors, so reducing stress. We know with increased stress, smoking, those type of things is going to be a little bit harder on your gut as well. Hydration, very, very important to stay hydrated to negate any of the effects that you could have with obtaining some of these sugar-free foods. So what about energy drinks? So my recommendation here is a cup of coffee in the morning is very different than a Bang energy drink, but they are both energy drinks at the base of it, right? So what you should consider is, how do you respond to stimulants, caffeine specifically, as an individual? Can you handle 300 milligrams from that Bang drink? Or can you handle a cup of coffee? Now this is cold brew, which is 95 milligrams. So a standard coffee at home is going to be somewhere between 60 to 125, I believe. That's kind of where standard cup of coffee goes. But then also consider what other ingredients are in that drink, that energy drink that you're having, that may be good for my goals or maybe not so good for my goals. Do I really even know what that ingredient is? So just a few of these energy drinks you could be comparing. Sugar-free Red Bull actually only has 80 milligrams in that 8.4 ounce. So that's that small one that you can get, which could be considerate amount of less caffeine than some of these other options. So you're thinking home brewed coffee is 95. The Starbucks tall pike roast is 235. And the talls are small. So you're thinking, this could be the same as my coffee at home. It's really not. Starbucks adds a lot of caffeine into their drinks, which could be also a reason why a lot of people are obsessed with it, right? We know caffeine is correlated with like responses in our brain of addiction. So that could be something there. I don't know. Monster Energy Zero has 140, which is almost about half of what Bang Energy has. And please tell me you're not taking 10 hours your energy shots. I'll come at any of you guys who are taking that. Just don't do it. Not good. And then just lastly here, I have this little chart. It's nerded out. If you want it, I'm not going to go over it. I'm just, because it wouldn't make sense if I just read it. So I just thought this was interesting to see the responses in our brain and the simulation from there and what happens after it. Because this was basically off of the like brain center response when it has caloric sweeteners versus that 0-calorie sweeteners. So any questions on that? I felt like that was a lot, but I kind of went through it quickly. It was a lot of research stuff. If you were just bored out with research stuff, it was a lot, but at the end of the day, like there really is not enough research to or for it. Is just kind of still up for debate, which is interesting. After all these years, we're still up for debate.
You mentioned the Zevia. That's from Fresh Time.
Yeah, but you can get it anywhere. I want to say like Kroger has it, Giant Eagle, and it's called Zevia because it uses stevia in it. So it has that stevia.
Okay, I was gonna ask the reason why that one's better than, like, for instance, like, I don't know, Coke Zero or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't drink pop, but my boyfriend drinks pop, so.
Yeah. So that's the only difference, is it's using that stevia. So as I mentioned, the naturalist sugars that are still 0 calories are like your stevia and your monk fruit. So, if you are going to opt for maybe artificial sweeteners of some sort, in my mind, I'm like, well, at least I'm going to get a natural one. Like, that's just my thought process. So, but then again, I am that person that still is like, I want to treat myself day. And sometimes that is getting like a coffee and having sweeteners in it. And it's not always honey, and it's not always pure table syrup or whatever. I'll have artificial sweeteners in there too. I'll get the sugar-free pumps, but that's why I feel like it's like, it's a moderation thing. Like, how serious do you want to take it? What's your response to it? Do you notice you're like super gassy after you have it? Things like that. But that would just be how I typically like to do it. And I'm not a big pop person either, but I will say some people can be influential on that pop thing, even if you're not a big pop person.
I will say I like sugar-free syrup because it doesn't have all the carbs in it, but I like the sweetness of it. Mm-hmm. So I do that sometimes, like with my oatmeal.
Yeah, same here. Oatmeal, the pancakes, because I'm like, well, if I'm already taking in a bunch of calories for my pancakes and carbs, like at least want to cut some corners here with the syrup. Same thing with my condiments. Actually, I usually opt for like sugar-free, and my barbecue sauce, I'll opt for sugar-free in my ketchup. Kind of the same concept of, well, I'm already having most of the time something I'm dipping in it, or say I have fries, sweet potato fries, I'm going to be dipping my ketchup in that. So I'm already getting some carbs. I'm eating food with it. So it's not that it's replacing food, because I'm still eating food with it. I'm just trying to get the least amount of extra calories in those condiments too. But the biggest reason for the ketchup too is most ketchups are made with high fructose corn syrup. So I kind of opt for the sugar-free version to eliminate that, because I'll take the greater good, which would be, I don't want that crap in my food, like high fructose corn syrup. That's fake as crap. So I'll choose sugar-free foods in that sense. And barbecue sauce can surprisingly have a lot of sugars in it too. They put a lot in it.
I do notice, so my brother does a lot of keto stuff, and monk fruit is like the major one sweetener that people use for like using that for like making food or desserts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that's because they're obviously trying to cut carbs and still get that like immense sweet taste. I do think your artificial sweeteners like stevia, I have a huge like container of stevia for like baking and stuff, but I'll notice a difference in taste with that compared to like coconut sugar. So I've opted to use more of like coconut sugar and things like that as my sugar than stevia, just because I don't know, it didn't break down well in cooking either.
Grainy.
Yeah. And I feel like the coconut sugar, it's it's natural too, and it breaks down better.
So when you look at food labels, like, is there a number of how much sugar, or do you just read the label to know like what all kinds of sugar are in like a condiment or a piece of food? Yeah.
So wait, are you asking if I'm reading like the nutrition, because I have a Zebra right here with me. So am I reading the nutrition label or am I looking at the ingredients list?
Yeah. Do you start with the ingredients, or do you look at like how much added sugar is on like the nutrition?
I would look at ingredient list first. So I don't particularly monitor my sugar intake. Like I'm not one of those people that tracks how much sugar like that I specifically have. I'll just go for overall carbs. So in my instance, if I'm going to a store and I'm looking at food labels, I'm going to first look at number one, just the general macronutrient range. So how many fats are in it, how many carbs, how many protein. And if there's a comparable item to it, well, I'm going to pick up both of those and I'm going to compare, well, which one's better for me? And then I'll go into the ingredient list. Okay, so now I'm looking at, what has the least amount of ingredients? What has the better ingredients between the two? If one has better ingredients, but it's a little bit higher in calories, I'll probably take that one. If there is, let's say, price would be my next point where I kind of distinguish between some food items. Do I really want to spew out a little bit more for this? And then I'll compare serving sizes too, because even if you're comparing the same thing, they could both have two different serving sizes. So you might be making your judgment off of that, but this one could be actually double of what this one is. So I would say the first and most important thing would be to look at the food label. See the general macronutrient breakdown, and then dive in a little bit deeper. Okay, this has carbonated water, natural flavors, stevia leaf extract, citric acid. Okay. And then like the very last thing I would be looking at is, what are they marketing? How are they trying to market this? So this is marketing, it's gluten-free, it's vegan, things like that. So caffeine-free, just depending on where I'm at and like what my goal is. I would say like physique wise, am I just trying to cut as much corners as I can, or am I trying to optimize my health and pick more nutrient dense foods? So I guess that's kind of how I go through maybe even the store, the grocery store, and picking some of my food items.
Yeah, because I always like compare like protein bars. Like I'm always looking,
Yes.
obviously I look at the main three macros, but then it's like sugars. Like I don't want a lot of sugar. And then I've never really honestly looked too much into the details of like what's in it. So I need to start doing that.
Actually, funny that you mentioned that. So when I went to the store, when I went to the store, I bought a whole bunch of protein bars because I like to eat them like on the go. And if I'm at a tournament or something like that, I just want to take in like food, even though I'm not like super hungry, like in mid sport, you're not really hungry, but you're like, I'm like getting grouchy, I'm getting lethargic, and I'm still trying to play. So excuse him, he's meowing. But I went through and bought a bunch of bars, and I kind of went about it. So most people have like candy. I just have a bunch of protein bars. So I opted first, I wanted to get my go-tos that I usually get all the time, that I know these are good as in taste. So this is the Cliff Protein Builders. So I know if I'm having this bar, when I looked at it, I know I'm having a good amount of fats with it, 9 grams. I know it's a good amount of protein, I think 20. And then carbohydrates are 31. So compared to some other protein bars, this is going to be a little bit higher carbs, but that also goes with just the ingredients in it. So I'll kind of go through, it's going to say that it's organic. All the stars are organic, but the things that it has in it that I don't necessarily think are the best is the soy content in it, and then the high oleic sunflower oil. So that's just a highly processed sunflower oil or oil in general. So those aren't the best. So those are the two things I have against it. So if I did have a huge intolerance to soy, or I was trying to eliminate as much soy as possible, probably wouldn't take this. But the downside of this one is that high sunflower oil that it has in it. But it's gluten-free too, and it states marketing. Its marketing is, it's low glycemic, which means it's not going to spike up your insulin levels right now. And I think Ryan's looking through her protein bars right now. I've had this one before. This is Nugo's dark chocolate. I like this one. It's a little bit lower in fats. So it's about 6 grams of fats, 13 protein, and 25 carb. So this is going to be a little bit less like macronutrient wise than this one. But to me, my body doesn't know the difference really. It's still about the same weight. Let me see, they're both 50 grams, I believe. Oh, this one's 68, so just a little bit more. But I'll opt for this. This is a good option as well. Ideally, I'd like a protein bar that has about 20 grams in it, but say you're getting close to the end of the day or something like that, maybe you're reaching towards your limit, this one fits pretty good, and you still get low fat with it. This one's kind of the same way, exactly the same way, same brand too. I used to eat, sorry, I'm like going into all my protein bars here. I used to eat no-cal bars a lot, but then I just like lost like the taste for them. They just seemed really chalky. So if I'm being honest, I'm just trying this one again because it's more of a natural protein bar. It's dairy-free, plant protein, and it says it's high protein, so it has 21 grams, 8 grams of fat, and 23 carbs. So a very good balanced one that kind of has the perfect amount of macronutrient range I would be looking for. But let's see. The things in here I wouldn't necessarily like. Honestly, it doesn't have a lot. So it has stevia and monk fruit in it. So that's how it kind of gets its sweetness. So there's not a lot of issues I have with this. It just depends on my like taste, if I like the taste of it. One bars, they're my jam. They're not the best out there, but I just like, I'm obsessed with the birthday cake one bars. So this one has 8 grams of fat, 23 carbs, 20 protein. Perfect macronutrient range for me. The downside of this would be the soy, and it has a lot of ingredients. It has whey in it too, which I don't think I do whey well. And it also has the, yeah, he's annoying. It also has the vegetable oil blends. So it's not the best, I guess you say ingredient wise, but I'm kind of like obsessed with them. I feel like that's all, other than I'm going to try out the plant ones. So instead of these bars that are using whey, I want to try the plant ones. But in this one, you're going to get a little bit less protein. So 12 grams of protein and about the same carbs and fats. So that's just kind of my little route. Yeah, so that's how I go about looking at it. Macronutrients first, and then I break down and look at, okay, what are the ingredients? And then I'll do a comparison of, you know, this one versus that one. Well, which one do I want? Which one am I looking for? On some occasion, I might want ones with a lot of higher fats in it, and other occasions, maybe not. So it just kind of depends. Like a pre-workout wise, I want a little bit lower fats.
Yeah. I like the pure protein ones I've noticed. I like the taste. I haven't looked at the label, but I'm afraid to look at the label.
No, those ones are really good.
Well, are they? Those really are like my fave.
As far as like, I think 5 or 6 grams of fat per those, and there's 20 grams of protein, and I think maybe like 18 to 20 some grams of carbs.
Yeah.
I used to be on those ones a lot too, so I feel your pain with that. I would buy them in the boxes. Those used to be my jam, and then I don't know, I think I bought them so much that it's like, well, I need something else.
Yeah, I went to Costco this weekend, and Kirkland's has a brand that's similar. So I compared the macros, and there was just maybe 1 or 2 carbs more in the Kirkland ones. But I didn't obviously look at the ingredients because that's not my thing I always look at. But it'll definitely be interesting to see what they compare wise.
Yeah, and they could have very, very similar ingredients too, like very similar. But yeah. Ryan, what were you looking at over there? I saw you looking at your bars.
Oh, I'm just trying to get my steps in. I was looking. I joined this thing with this girl in high school, and I'm like now angry because I was number 1 this morning because I worked out this morning.
Yeah.
And then this guy goes to work, and Brandon with an O is like 27,000 steps, and he doesn't even work out.
27,000. Was he fake?
27,000 steps today. And I'm so angry because no matter how much I walk around my apartment, I am not going to reach that.
Hey, guess what? He might not be consistent though. Like that could just be his one day that he had a huge, maybe he's a runner. Cause if they're a long distance runner, they'll rack up them easy.
He said he normally racks about at least 17 a day because he works on his, like he doesn't sit for his job. I think he's construction or something. I don't know.
Oh shoot.
I would say my boyfriend, he's always on his feet, and he constantly will come home with 18 to 22,000 steps.
Yeah.
I can never beat him. Only on the
So
weekend
jealous.
to do anything.
So jealous. But no, I
Yeah.
was looking at these Nature's Bakery. They're fig bars. I haven't opened the box, but I've eaten them before, like when I'm really hungry. And it looks like they've got a lot of natural ingredients, but I don't know. It's not really a protein bar though. It's more or less like if I'm really hungry and
Right.
yeah,
Just
it's just
like
like
a
dairy free,
quick bar.
nut free. Yeah. But
That's
yeah,
like
I have your same bars, the Cliff bars.
Yeah. I like those. That's kind of like these like chewy bars. Like they're just basically a little bit of like quick carb source.
Yeah.
Yeah, very low fats.
What
but also
what bar would you recommend for like, I guess, getting your fats in? Because I feel like each day when I'm like missing my fat like marker, and I try to eat peanuts, but I can't have almonds anymore. So I'm just trying to think of like, and buying guacamole is just like a really, like it goes bad. If I buy an avocado and I don't use it like right away, it'll go bad.
So I would say actually it's really easy to overdo fats, like very easy. So I would say maybe when you're cooking, do a drizzle of oil. Like an easy way to get, some fats into your meal is that way. Maybe even butter. Like I'm not going to say that butter is not a bad thing. I have a soy butter or whatever. So I use that, and I'll sometimes put that in something just to add a little bit more fats to it. That's if I'm really pushing to get fats. Like if I'm really trying to get on the stars of fats. But eggs, maybe you're having just egg whites in the morning. What if you added in a whole egg into your egg whites?
I have 4 egg whites and 1 whole egg in the morning. So like I start off with fats. It's just towards the end of the day I'm lacking.
Why don't you do like 2 eggs and then 2 egg whites?
Yeah.
That would double your fat.
You could add a slice of cheese if you're into cheese.
Yeah, I added like 1 slice of cheese to my egg whites, but it's still like, I don't know. That's the only star I'm missing today. I'm not gonna say eat like a tub of butter. Like
no, and I wouldn't want you to. Yeah, dressing's a good one too. You can get some fats in that way.
Yeah.
Oils and things you're cooking, peanut butter, almond butter.
Chocolate. I usually add chocolate some days.
Yeah. No, I got those bark thins and they're so good. Oh my gosh.
Oh, they are so good. I can't buy those. I can't do that. They'll be gone in like one sitting. Oh.
I had like 3 pieces.
No, I have these dark chocolate, like they're probiotic. I got them at Costco, and I like, if I really want chocolate, like I'll snack on that, but it's not, I don't know. I'll have to look and see if I can get fat from that.
Sam, were you going to say those dairy-free chocolate chips? Yeah.
Those are my weakness. I had to stop buying them. I felt like every time I made a yogurt or protein bowl, I would add a
put in it.
Fit my macros, but I was just like, I need to stop.
Yeah, I was there for a while too. I was buying, well, I still have those chocolate chips, but I was just always putting them in something. And I'm like, what am I doing? So I went, like the next time I went to the grocery store, I didn't buy them. So it was kind of like a little hiatus. And then the next time I did, and that was just enough for me to stop putting in and everything. I was like, oh, I guess I don't really need it. Same thing when I got the coconut whipped cream. Really loved it. I overused it in my protein shakes, but I had to stop buying it like the next 2 times I went to the store because I was just putting it in everything. I was like, on my coffee, on top of my protein shake, on top of my oatmeal, a little dollop. So sometimes if you're feeling like you're always getting into something or you're always adding this certain thing to your foods, just don't pick it up the next time we're to the grocery store. It gives you a little bit of a hiatus. And then when you bring it back in, you're like, for me personally, I just feel like less attached to it. I'm like, oh, like I can go without it. So I guess I'm not that into it, but
I'll have to see like what artificial sweeteners, because it's supposed to be 0 sugar added, 0 artificial sweeteners, and 0% fat, but it's 15 grams of protein.
Yeah.
But it doesn't.
I feel like it might be, I think you can't see your individuals on that one. You have to go to like the package. Yeah. I forget what that one is.
I'll have to look it up.
I started on, so I used to be into the Okios, and then I found like this Icelandic yogurt, I guess if you want to call it. Super, super good. Let me see now actually what that sugar, because I don't really pay attention too much to like true sugar content, I guess if you want to say. But like I'll look at the artificial sweeteners and things like that. So let me just see the yogurt here.
Yeah, I have that for my lunch, and then I bought this to use in smoothies.
Yeah,
it's the coconut yogurt alternatives.
So here's this one, and the sugar content is just from cane sugar.
Oh,
natural sugar.
okay.
This is, it's really good. It tastes.
Where'd you get that?
Fresh Thyme. I feel like it's also at like Target, I want to say. I don't know.
I found a Fresh Thyme. It's 45 minutes from me, but we're going this weekend.
Where should I go next? Where should I go next, guys? My next adventure.
My field trip.
Don't ask me because I don't have many places around me that I would go to. I have your Kroger, your Walmart, your Aldi.
I might go to Walmart next.
Ooh, Walmart's not so good.
Yeah, but I want to like pull food items from there to show people like, if you have to, like, it's not really that bad. If this is all you got.
Yeah.
Like, in her instance, like that's probably the closest grocery store. So, I mean, heck, if that was the closest to me, I'd be going there too. So I might do that one next to show people.
I drive past my Walmart and go to the Chinese.
You're like,
it's closer.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you guys for sharing that stuff. And if you find anything like your yogurts or, you know, you want to look at things a little bit further, feel free to like share them in the WhatsApp so we can all like compare stuff. I think that'd be cool.
Okay.
All right. Anybody have any questions, concerns, or just chilling?
Oh, those videos for this week, is that just this week and then send them to you by the end of the week?
Yeah, just send it to me by the end of the week. I have a couple from, I think Chelsea sent me a few. I'm just waiting for you guys to all collect them and then I'll go through those. So
yeah, I took some today for my leg day, but
yay.
Going hiking on Sunday and then leg day was like not a good
idea.
Well, because David chose one of the trails that is uphill like the whole way. And my